The girl hadn't eaten in 3 days. Her lips were split, her eyes rimmed red from dust and dread, her wrists bound tight with coarse hemp rope that bit into her skin every time she shifted. The sun above Larkspur Crossing burned like a hammer, flattening the horizon into gold and pain. Even the wind felt cruel that summer, carrying the dry hiss of judgment. She sat on the back of a creaking wagon near the old stock pens, barefoot, trembling, her dress torn at the seams, surrounded by men who laughed like coyotes circling something helpless. They said she was lucky to be breathing, but Clara Vale didn't feel lucky. She felt like a stray soul caught between mercy and madness. When she spoke, her voice was barely there. "Please, just make it quick." No one listened. The crowd was busy haggling over her as if she were livestock. Jonas Pike, the man who had dragged her off the Santa Rosa Trail, waved a wrinkled piece of paper in the air. "She eats more than she's worth," he sneered. "Somebody take her before the sheriff learns I'm trading people instead of cattle." Then from the edge of the crowd a stranger stepped forward. His hat cast a shadow across his face, his shirt soaked with sweat from a long ride. Luke Redden, a rancher known from Fort Ransom to Cimarron Creek, famous for a temper that could freeze fire and for living alone since the day his wife died. He looked at Clara without saying a word. His hands rested on the belt where a wedding band used to sit. "How much?" Luke asked quietly. Jonas grinned like a snake. "She's a talker, that one." "Give me $1 and she's yours." The crowd roared with laughter, a human soul for a single coin. Luke reached into his pocket, pulled out a tarnished silver dollar, and dropped it onto the barrel between them. The clink cut through the noise like thunder. Every man fell silent. He didn't touch her, didn't even look at her again. He just said, "Get down from that wagon." Clara froze. She thought he meant to end her life right there. Maybe that would have been mercy. Maybe that was what freedom sounded like, in a land where souls were cheaper than horses. She stepped down, her knees shaking, her breath shallow. Luke turned to Jonas. "Write your name on that paper," he said, his voice firm, "so everyone sees this trade was yours." Jonas hesitated, but Luke's gaze carried weight. Out here, even a $1 exchange could bind a man to his crime. What Jonas thought was a sale became a confession written in ink, and Luke knew it. When Clara realized what he'd done, her legs gave out. He hadn't bought her. He'd freed her. The yard went still. Only the wind moved, carrying the scent of iron and dust. Clara looked up at the stranger, unsure if she should thank him or run. Somewhere deep inside, a question took root. If a man could buy her freedom for a single $1, what would he ask for in return? They left Larkspur Crossing before dusk. The road stretched endless, painted red by the dying sun. Clara rode on the sideboard, her hands raw from rope burns, her mind spinning. She was free, or at least that's what Luke said. But freedom is a strange thing when you have nowhere to go. Luke rode ahead, quiet as an old prayer. He didn't ask where she came from or what Jonas had done. He just said, "We'll ride till the river. You'll eat there." By sundown, they reached the Rio Blanco. The water shimmered like molten glass. Luke unpacked a loaf of bread and a canteen, setting them beside her without a word. His eyes didn't hold pity, just duty. When she whispered, "Thank you," he waved it off. "You don't owe me," he said. "I paid $1 to stop a bad thing, not to start another." That night, coyotes howled across the plains. The stars felt close enough to touch, and Clara felt impossibly small beneath them. Luke sat by the fire, whittling a piece of cedar into the shape of a horse's head. His hands were scarred, steady, patient. He reminded her of the father she'd lost to the war. She asked softly, "Why'd you help me?" "You didn't even know my name." He didn't look up. I knew the man selling you, and I knew what kind of shadow he lived under. For the first time in months, her chest felt lighter. Maybe they were still men out there who saw something worth saving. By morning, she found a clean shirt folded near her blanket. It smelled of smoke and soap. She laughed quietly, the sounds startling her own ears. Luke looked up from the fire, almost smiling. Almost. They rode again through waist-high grass, wind tugging at their hair. She didn't know where they were going, maybe to his ranch near Dry Hollow, maybe nowhere. But for the first time, the road didn't feel like a cage. At a small creek, she washed her hands. The water turned red with dust and old fear. Luke said quietly, "Don't look back too long. It's the easiest way to lose your way." She nodded, and for a heartbeat, hope felt real. But hope in the West never lasts, because back in Larkspur, someone had noticed that Luke Redden had taken something money wasn't meant to buy, and that someone was coming. 2 days later, the dust found them again. Trouble always does. They'd stopped near Copper Bend, fixing a busted wheel. For a while, it almost looked like peace, until 3 riders appeared, one wearing a tarnished badge. Deputy Crane, the kind of lawman who'd sell his conscience for whiskey. Luke rose slowly, steady as a mountain. "Afternoon, Crane." Crane smirked. "Afternoon, Redden. Heard you bought yourself a girl. Folks back in Larkspur are talking." His eyes gleamed with greed. Jonas Pike had promised him a cut if he brought the girl back. Silence followed, heavy as a tomb. Clara whispered, "They'll come back." Luke looked west, the sun bleeding into the horizon. "Yeah," he said, "they will." The coffee boiled over, hissing in the fire. The smell was bitter and sharp. That night, neither of them slept. The stars seemed smaller, the coyotes closer. By dawn, they both knew the law wasn't behind them anymore. It was hunting them. So before we ride into that storm, take a breath, friend. Pour yourself some coffee. And if you're still here listening, it means you love a good story as much as I do. Go on, tap that subscribe button and leave a comment below. Tell me where you're tuning in from tonight. Out here, stories travel better when they're shared. By the 3rd night, the wind changed. It carried rain and gunpowder. Luke felt it before he saw it. He loaded the rifle, tied down the wagon, and told Clara to keep the lantern low. They were crossing Raton Pass, a jagged trail between Kansas and New Mexico. Shadows twisted along the canyon walls. Then came a flicker of light on the ridge, then another. 3 riders. Luke didn't need to guess. He whispered, "Jonas." The man who once sold Clara for $1 had come to reclaim his shame. The riders came fast, dust glowing under the stars. Luke shouted, "Hold on!" The wagon jerked forward, wheels jumping stones. Bullets tore the night apart, splintering wood, grazing his arm. He didn't flinch. Clara grabbed the rifle. Her hands shook, but her aim held. She fired once, missed, fired again. The echo rolled through the canyon like thunder. Jonas ducked behind a rock, cursing. Luke steered the wagon toward the riverbed. Horses stumbled, dirt flying. They crashed down the slope as bullets followed. When they hit the dry creek, Luke leapt off. "Hide in the rocks!" "I'm not leaving you," she shouted. "Do it!" he barked. She ran, crouched behind a boulder. The laughter of men echoed through the dark. Then, a match struck. Flames bloomed near the wagon. Jonas had set the brush ablaze. By noon, they reached Fort Aspen, where the marshal read the paper with Jonas's signature. That dollar became proof of who the real criminals were. When they were cleared, Luke turned to Clara. "You're free now. Truly free." They rode until the plains turned green again. The air smelled of rain and grass. She asked softly, "Where will you go?" He looked toward the horizon, wherever the world still needs folks like us. He handed her the paper that bore her name. No one had ever written it before. Tears filled her eyes. That night, near Cedar Bluff, the wind whispered through the grass. Clara held that paper close. Freedom, she realized, isn't given. It's claimed, one heartbeat at a time. Luke smiled across the fire. The world will keep trying to sell you cheap. Don't let it decide your worth. When dawn broke, she saddled her own horse. The prairie stretched endless before her. "Coming with me?" she asked. Luke grinned. "If you'll have me." And just like that, two broken souls rode into the sunrise, side by side, chasing something larger than forgiveness. Maybe that's what the West was always about. Not gold, not glory, but the courage to begin again, even after the world tried to sell you for $1. Tell me, friend, if you'd been there that day, would you have paid that coin to set her free? If this story touched your heart, give it a like, drop a comment, and hit subscribe so more folks can ride along with us on the next tale under this endless sky. Because out here, every story starts the same way, with dust, $1, and someone worth saving.